Yeah,
The moon
so
is way closer than any stars.
right, that's what I'm saying. Anyway, the point is, so yeah, so they do that, and then they bail on their bill because they didn't realize that the mimosas were like $8 a piece, blah blah blah, and they don't have any money, so they dine and dash.
It's a classic dine and dash. Mac
Yeah,
starts it and he gets out so fast. It was really impressive.
and Charlie's stuck. It's like a hot potato game. They actually throw the little bill sleeve thing, that like little
Yeah.
leather pouch that the bill. They throw it to Charlie. It ends up in his lap, and then he has to scramble to
Well,
get
he
out.
ordered the mimosas, so it's fair.
Right, right. And
It's his fault.
this is interesting because I don't drink alcohol, so I've never really been experienced with it. But the idea of brunch with bottomless mimosas, that feels like a Philly thing. Is that an everywhere thing?
I think in 2020 or 2019 or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's everywhere, but I would say that exists everywhere.
Okay, because and this was like probably a time in which I was sort of living in Philly, like the late 2000s.
Hmm.
Maybe Charlie assumed it was bottomless mimosas. Like, hey, cool, yeah.
They had many bottoms. They had 8 bottoms to be specific.
Yeah, so anyway, so they dine and dash, whatever, that's fine. They leave. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Frank started gambling with his Vietnamese friends.
Very cool. Very cool.
And yeah, when they're confused about this, I think it's awesome when Frank whispers, Asians love gambling.
Hmm.
Um,
It
my,
seems like Frank loves gambling, maybe just as much or more.
well, that's why he loves his Vietnamese crew.
Right.
So the show is setting the tone for Frank and his gambling crew from Vietnam. Meanwhile, the gang goes and gets their community service jobs, which is basketball coaches. But there's only 2 teams available, or 2 coach positions available. So Dennis gets sent with the Wildcats, and Mac and Dee are in charge of coaching the Ducks. I guess Dennis gets into the gym first, and he starts picking his team. So he just basically starts pointing to all the black kids, and then has them come over onto his team. Meanwhile, Dee and Mac walk in, and they're really upset by this, and they're arguing, and it's very awkward because no one wants to point out exactly what he's done.
Right.
At,
You
at
know what you've done.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's my favorite part. Mac, as they're trying to explain what he's done, but not actually saying it,
You can't pick
What
on.
should I not
You
say?
know exactly what you've done, sir.
and it's really funny that he's calling Dennis sir. But I think it makes sense in context because they're trying to like avoid being racist so much,
Right.
even though it's like they're obviously being racist.
Yes, they're trying to come off as maybe a little higher class than
Right,
saying you picked all the black kids.
right. You know exactly what you've done, sir. Then they realize that the guy who assigned them their coach positions notifies them that the teams are already picked. That they're not picking their teams, like they're just coaches. So we have the Ducks versus the Wildcats. In this position, Mac and Dee sort of vie for who's going to be the head coach. So I guess they play like a one-on-one game where Mac just destroys Dee and elbows her in the face, blah blah blah.
I
So
wish we
Mac-
could have seen more of that because
More of the game.
A game of 21 between those two would have been really good stuff. But I understand that that's maybe not the most brief thing to put into a sitcom.
I was just thinking it would be fun to see Dee and Charlie because she's so much taller than him.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
then I thought maybe Dee versus Frank would be awesome.
Yeah, it's also interesting to me because I know that the rules of 21 are different basically all over the country. Like there are a different set of rules,
What
slight variations on the rules.
What are the rules?
I mean, there's different stuff. Like if you are shooting a free throw and you're at 13 and you miss, you go back to 0.
What?
Yeah, that was a rule where I grew up. And I know
makes
that's
no
not the
sense.
case. I'm just telling you what the rule. I'm telling you that there are different rules for this
How
game.
was that justified?
And if you get 22, you go back to 13. You have to land on 21 exactly.
Wait, is a 3-point shot a 2-point shot or a 3-point
Yeah.
shot? Like
2 point.
that doesn't like who's taking a 2-point shot at 20? That's weird.
And then you get so you make a basket. You make the first free throw. You get to shoot a second free throw. You make that. You make that one. You step back to the 3-point line and you take that shot, and that's worth 2 points.
Wait. Hold on. Oh, I thought a free throw was when you get fouled.
Not in 21. Not in the way I grew up playing 21. You
How
make a
does-
basket. You make a basket, and you immediately go to the free throw line.
Whoa, so you're like, okay, so you flip a coin, whoever goes first dribbles around, does a cool thing, they take a layup and they get it in. Then
Yeah.
it's 1-0, right?
Right. Right.
And then whoever got that basket immediately gets a free throw.
Right.
Oh, why?
I don't know why. I mean, these are just the rules that I was taught.
Okay, so if you make
I'm making a point that the rules of this game are different everywhere.
that, then you have 2-0.
Someone out there listening to this will understand what I'm saying.
2-0, right?
Yeah.
At that point. Then because you made that free throw, you get the ball back again and you step back to the 3-point line.
No. You would be at 3 points if you'd made the second free throw. You have to make 2 free throws consecutively before you step back.
Okay. So it's 2-0. You get another free throw. You get the second free throw.
Right.
And that's also with 1 point. So now you're 3-0.
Right.
And now to keep going, you step back to the 3-point line, which is worth 2 points. So you land that, and then you're at 5-0.
Right.
And then what happens?
And then I don't remember what happens. Keep in mind that I was playing this game when I was like 10 to probably 12 years old, and so like making a free throw is basically impossible for someone that size.
Okay.
It wasn't a rare thing that people made the free throws. It was very rare, in fact.
Gotcha. Well,
And also if you did this thing where if you got a rebound and you put the ball back in the hoop before you touch the ground, that person that shot that shot goes to 0, and you get 2 points, maybe 3. I forget.
So
there's a lot of rules.
So I shoot. It hits the backboard, it hits the rim, and then it falls. And as it's falling, you jump in the air, catch it, throw it back up, and it goes in.
You go to 0.
I
If
go
you're
to
under
0.
13, and if you're over 13, you go back to 13.
Interesting. Well, this reminds me of growing up. I had an uncle from Beacon, New York, upstate New York, who taught me how to play poker. Except he was very adamant that it was called Beacon poker. And he changed the rules all the time. And he would say, "Yeah, well, this is how you play cheating poker. I mean, Beacon poker."
Nice.
That sounds like a crazy game where people made up rules.
Yeah, I think it is. But those were like the playground rules for years.
Okay, like someone made it up, and then someone took it seriously, and then it stopped being changed, and like that was cemented as canon.
At the Weskin school, yes, that was.
So
that was
you're
canon.
saying that
It
there
might still
are
be the same. It might still be the same. I don't know if it's changed.
You're saying that tens and tens of people have played the game this way for years.
Tens upon tens.
Okay. Anyway, so in general, Mac is being really shady and teaching his kids how to fight dirty and play dirty and talking about how technique doesn't matter if you're just stronger and you're willing to elbow and knee people, blah, blah, blah. And Dee is trying to take the high ground as a strong female coach. And later on in the episode, she actually shows up with a full-on yellow pantsuit, which, were you aware that this was an homage to Pat Summitt?
Oh, absolutely. I was just gonna say like the legendary female basketball coach Pat Summitt, or like really any female college basketball coach. That was probably still is definitely a thing. But Pat Summitt, yeah, she's the OG.
Yeah, I read a little bit about her. She seems cool,
Yeah.
Olympics and all. Anyway, okay, so Mac and Dee are doing that. So Dennis has his hands full with the Wildcats, which is pretty awesome because one of the kids is just not wearing shoes, just running around in his socks. And who I think the star of the show is, he is running around in flip-flops. This is Calvin Tran. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his career, but this is a young Calvin Tran who's wearing flip-flops. He's kind of like a mildly chubby Asian kid, and he is awesome.
He is awesome. He was he credited as Flip Flop Kid or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He's great. He doesn't know the answer to a lot of questions, but he makes up for it with heart.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's great. At one point, he brings Dennis a soda, and it's diet, and Dennis is very disappointed, and he asks him questions. He just keeps saying, "I don't know."
Do I look like I need to be on a diet?
I don't know.
Terrible. Take a lap.
Oh, that's so good. And then he takes a lap with the diet soda, the soda can in his hand in the flip flops, like shuffling around the court.
Yeah, he's got heart.
Yeah, he's a team player.
Right.
So that's the premise, and they're both like coaching their teams. It's kind of a mess, but Dennis is really excited about his star player Chris, who is just really good. The other kids are just like, like throwing the ball in random directions, rolling around, like stumbling. Can't do much, but Chris is like great, sinks every basket.
Did you notice that Chris wasn't in the lineup when they were picking teams?
I thought I noticed that at a different point earlier when
He must have only been available for like a couple hours or something. Because yeah, he was not in the first few.
Right. Or maybe they picked one of those groups and that person wasn't good enough. And they were like, well, we need somebody who can deliver like 2 lines.
Right. Could be.
But yeah, so at some point, Frank hears about the game, gets really excited. And it's very obvious to us as a viewer that I think he asked at one point.
Like 2 teams playing against each other?
Yeah, that's generally how basketball's played.
Basketball, huh?
So he's obviously in gambling mode, and that's why he's excited. But he ends up volunteering and wants to help Dennis coach the Wildcats, to which him and Dennis have they shoot for it because, again, Frank does everything that Frank does resembles or resorts to gambling. So in order to find out who's going to be the coach, they shoot for it, and Dennis loses. So Frank sticks around.
Another scene I wish we could have seen.
That would have been another good game. Somewhere in here, actually, when Frank and Dennis are discussing, there's a really interesting point. Dennis is talking about the waitress and Charlie and things like that, and he references banging the waitress.
Yeah.
And Frank says, you shouldn't be banging your friends' girlfriends, which is really interesting because if this show is in the correct order as it is right now,
Then he banged her too.
yeah, it's very strange because,
Yeah.
3 episodes ago, he had sex with her. So
Right.
that's one of the small things where it makes sense that this should have been the follow-up to the Gang Goes Jihad.
The way that he gives that advice is pretty funny though. He's like a crazy degenerate gambler and then just shifts to like serious dad mode
Yeah,
for
exactly.
a brief second, and then Dennis of course is like, yeah, that guy should listen to anything you say.
Yeah. It is really genuine and heartfelt the way he delivers it.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about Danny DeVito, a great actor.
Dennis, you shouldn't be sleeping with your friends' girlfriends.
What are you handing down life lessons? Get the hell out of here. Get off my court.
So while the basketball premise is happening, we have Charlie who was sentenced to AA, which is that a thing that can happen? Can the court demand you do that?
Absolutely. That's why AA sucks, or a lot of the groups at AA that I went to sucked.
Oh, because people
There's
had
a lot
to
of
be
people
there.
who don't want to be there
Right.
and are assholes.
Right. So, so Charlie is going to his court remanded AA. Is remanded a word?
I think so.
It sounds right when I
Let's
say
just
it.
go with it.
Cool. So Charlie's sneaking into the AA meeting a little bit late and a little bit drunk, and he has just a little bit left in his beer, so he finishes that as he sneaks in. And my favorite part of the scene is when he drops it into the garbage and it clanks to the bottom, and he winces, and his facial reaction is really good and genuine.
Everyone can relate to that when like you're trying so hard not to make any noise, and like the last thing you do in whatever sequence of things you're doing makes noise. It's just like,
Right.
fuck.
Right. Yeah, especially like it's a thing that I guess dropping a glass bottle into a garbage can would make noise, but if you're like sneaking into class or coming into a meeting or something, it's something you've done 100 times and never made any noise, but now that you're specifically trying to be quiet, you like
Right.
shift the desk or the chair and it screeches and it's loud
Right.
or whatever it is. So he does that and it's great. And there's this whole thing. He doesn't think he belongs there, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But the important part to me is that at the end of the class session
Sesh.
sesh, at the end of the sesh, he's pocketing the brownies. Literally,
Yeah.
he puts 2 in one pocket and then he's got his hand on another one.
Quick
So
side note, I've never been to an AA meeting where there's been any kind of spread like that. Not even remotely realistic.
Right. It is a sick spread. It's
Right.
really good. I would go to AA meetings if the spread was. I wouldn't because
There's-
I feel bad, but
There's rarely coffee too. I know that's like another like television cliche.
yeah, it's a
but
trope.
Extremely rare in
Right.
my experience.
Yeah, I think that I feel in the show Shameless, which I don't think you've watched, or you've watched and you didn't like, but I really
I
enjoyed
didn't
it.
like it.
Yeah, I really liked it, and they do a lot of AA sort of things, and I think they reference specifically, well, the coffee's bad, but it's strong, and blah blah blah. It just seems like a staple of AA. Maybe you should start an AA where there's like a spread with coffee.
No.
What about a non-religious AA with brownies and coffee?
I mean, I don't know how much you know about AA, but the text is written in the 30s, and it's quite dated.
Well, that's why I'm saying like it's a maybe there's a new
And the
program.
religious isn't the only problem. Yeah, there are plenty of other programs.
Okay. Anyway, so as he's pocketing brownies, which is a game that I know very well from like hotel breakfasts and like rider stuff and event things. So the waitress approaches him, crazy reveal, and he's shocked. He didn't see her, and she's like, "Yeah, I kind of saw you come in and crouch down in my chair." So basically, she starts to feel bad for him and kind of apologizes for being mean to him because she understands now that a lot of his actions make sense in context of him being an alcoholic, which he keeps denying. He keeps saying, no, he's not an alcoholic. No, he's not. And then when she says she wants to be his sponsor, he changes his mind and he's like kind of into it.
He could have given up on the like denial way earlier, but that's cool.
Yeah,
they got there.
Yeah, he didn't see what was happening.
Right.
My favorite part of this is when she's like reluctantly holding this small slip of paper and she like says that she might regret it and she hopes he doesn't. Don't make me regret this. She hands him a note or a piece of paper with her phone number on it. And as he's opening it, he looks at it and he says,
No shit. I was so close.
It's a brilliant bit, and like
so good.
she was like handing it to him, then she like brings it back, and then she decides to give it to, like, you can tell that it's like a very pained decision for her to make to actually go through with this.
And I didn't even really think about it till right now, but the premise of this is really great. I mean, Charlie is literally a stalker, and he's stalking her and like annoying her all the time and blah blah blah, and she's an alcoholic. She thinks or sees that he's an alcoholic and she wants to help him. So she is super conflicted in this moment. And yeah, she finally does it. And it's just amazing to see that. I mean, basically, I'm thinking Charlie's been calling numbers, trying to find her. Like, how many times a day would you have to dial how many numbers in order to find someone's number?
He's Romeo dialing, kind of with a specific purpose in mind. I think that the guy that calls him out when he walks in is really great. He's a really wonderful, like, that was cast by someone who has been to an AA meeting and like seen those guys in the back.
He was drinking a beer when he came in.
Dude, how you gonna...
But do you think that old timer who is like a staple in the AA community, do you think he would have ratted Charlie out?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
1,000%. 1,000%. That's very, very accurate.
Oh, well, I guess, yeah, in that context, because I guess we're taking it very lightly because we're like, Charlie's a character. Who cares if he's an alcoholic? Because he's not, because they can just write him not being one. But if it was serious and you were there for help, then it's not like a shitty ratting someone out. It's like, it's like calling someone out.
Yeah, because he's not going to take it seriously.
Right.
Obviously. He's not taking it seriously from like the second that he walks in.
Right. Okay, cool. So as a result of the waitress becoming Charlie's sponsor, he ends up at her house like every day. He's making himself, literally he says, well, this is cozy. Takes off his jacket. And at one point he's got his feet up on the ottoman, which is really...
Where else is he supposed to put his feet?
It's really strange. She's
it's
like,
for your feet.
She says, watch your feet or get your feet off. And he's like, well, okay, I'll take my shoes off. And she's like, oh, that's worse. No, don't do that. So he gets cozy. He says, oh, well, this is cozy. And then another time he's doing push-ups to impress her, talking about how his sobriety is really good for his body and blah, blah, blah. Making her very uncomfortable in general.
Yeah.
And eventually she gets kind of sick of it. And she asks about Dennis, whether or not, at this point, we don't know if that was like a plan that she eventually sprung or if she was just trying to turn him off a little bit. But she asks about Dennis and she kind of gets googly-eyed so we can see what's happening.
I mean, she seems like she's active in AA. She should know that asking Charlie or, saying that she would sponsor Charlie, she had to have known that he was going to do this shit. There's no way. She had a sponsor at some point. She has to know how much time you spent talking to this person.
Right.
So I think that, for me, her motives were clear from the start. Because
Gotcha.
like if she had any sense about her, she would know that Charlie was going to be super annoying and like try to sleep with her or try to watch her change.
Right. Okay. So you know a little bit more about this than me. I was a little unsure of where it was going, but
But I think that the average viewer would feel the same as you. I'm just saying, like,
right.
at the, I remember thinking, like, that's a very weird decision for her to make.
Right, because the intimacy involved.
She has a stalker, and now she's like inviting this person into her life.
Right. So yeah, so she reveals, I guess, her intentions and her interest in Dennis through Charlie, and Charlie doesn't get it, and he offhandedly sort of mentions, "Oh, well, he's been doing this youth basketball sort of coaching," and again, her eyes light up even brighter.
He works with kids?
Yeah, but look, he has to. That's why.
Oh
That's why
my
he's there.
God, that is so sweet.
Because I mean, I don't know, seems like a trope or a cliche, but also like, yeah, like how awesome is that when a guy's, volunteering his time? Little does she
Right.
know that it's court mandated.
Right.
So yeah, so the waitress is all impressed and smitten, and she asks to see if they could go like watch him work or see the game, and yeah, so they do, and Charlie's thinking of it as a date, and the waitress is uninterested. And I guess Charlie gets a little jealous, and then he excuses himself, and we know now where he goes. But she
Mhm.
takes this opportunity to accost Dennis at the water fountain.
A brilliant interaction.
Yeah, so it's super awkward, and she's like, "Yeah, I know things have been weird since implying when they slept together." And she's like,
See, I thought she was implying. I thought she was implying because she slept with Frank.
Oh, right.
That was what I thought.
Yeah, I guess that could be it too. I guess it's what world we're living in. Are we living
Right,
in a
right,
world
right, right.
where either way, it's a pretty awkward situation.
It is. It is. I just assumed that she was like. I know it was awkward after I banged your dad.
Yeah, that's more awkward.
Right.
So, but she's fighting through it, and she actually, goes for it. She puts herself out there and says that they should hang out. And he's like, "Well, I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, aren't you hanging out with Charlie?"
So I don't want to get in the middle of that.
Oh.
So we shouldn't talk at all while that's going on.
So he like walks away, and she sort of, you know, gets in her mind, oh, Charlie's sponsorship is the only thing in between her and Dennis.
This is the problem. Not that
Yeah.
he hates me.
Right.
It's the fact that I'm sponsoring his best friend.
Yeah, so she takes him at his word, which she does regularly because she's smitten with him. So
Right.
it makes sense. Also, in this scene, you see a little bit of camera work. Rather, you see literally a camera person in the side of the
Oh,
shot.
really? I didn't see
Yeah.
it.
When he walks away and it cuts. So there's like the close up of her being like awkward and dejected, but not knowing it, or rejected, but not knowing it. And then the long shot of him walking away. When you see him walk away, you see the her close up camera in just the edge of the shot.
I think that kind of is in the same vein as like one of the reasons why I think this episode rocks so hard is like it's like the first really classic Always Sunny because like all the plot points are great. It's just like really well paced. But also I am such a fan of the grimy lo-fi
Mhm,
production of the
Yeah.
first, 4 seasons.
Right.
Specifically season 1 and 2. They are rough looking and like
Yeah.
that to me just makes it better. Like watching the series, we're on like season 12 with my wife, and it's just like, no, this looks too clean, and
Right.
the lighting's too nice, and like it's not grainy, and there's something about the magic missing in like the HD production.
Right now, me watching it from episode 1 and through, I don't see it anymore. It's just natural.
No, I know exactly.
But it's when but like a year or two ago when I was like watching newer 12, 13, 14, the later seasons, and then you
Yeah.
jump back for fun and watch, a second or third season episode, you're like, whoa, what is going on? This is VHS like from
Yeah.
the 80s.
But it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It just fits. It fits the dynamic of the show so much better, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And this is like when everything was still in house, like written. All the episodes were written by the guys, and same director, basically directing all of the episodes.
Yeah.
I know you can't stick with that formula forever, and I know that's probably, the last thing you want to do as a creative is to like stick to this very limited formula. But it really, really works.
Right. And also they might have been like burning the candle at both ends doing all of this work in house.
I'm sure they were.
That after 5 seasons and some success, they might have been like, oh, this is great. We have a budget now. We can hire extra people. We can have other people do things and I can take a day off.
Yeah, it's natural. I think anyone would do that in that situation. But
Uh,
it's easy for us to be like, I liked it better then. I mean, I'm not criticizing the choices that the creators and the guys are making, but
I simply want my favorite band to play in a small, tiny venue for like 75
yeah.
people for the rest of their lives. Why
It's
can't
the
they
ex-
just keep making music that appeals to only me and a few other hundred people? How is that not
Exactly.
sustainable for them?
Exactly. It's the exact same thing, and I think that we've both been through enough of that as music fans
Yeah.
that you understand. Like you get to a point where like, or you are in a band and you're like, I don't want to play these songs anymore.
Right.
So I think that helps my perspective, being like, this rules. This kicks the shit out of all the new stuff, but I understand.
And season 12 is still really good. You know, it's like it's not like it's bad. All right, well, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll cross that bridge.
Well,
Okay, so
I'm gonna love Always Sunny forever. It doesn't matter. I just think that
I'm making a
uh,
prediction. Season 18 is going to be their peak. It's going to be it's going to be so good.
to quote Charlie Kelly quoting William Shakespeare, brevity is the soul of wit.
Interesting. Okay, so basically the waitress takes this information and she's like, "Okay, cool." So she goes back and the next time Charlie comes over for a sponsor session, she dumps him and, you know, basically that's it. And I think she even admits, yeah, she admits her plan was only to get close to Dennis. That's the only reason why she did it.
I only offered to be your sponsor so I could get closer to your friend Dennis.
He is upset, obviously, and he says, "Well, what if I start to drink? You know what I mean? Like this could set me back." And I think her line is the best line of this sort of storyline, the subplot. And she's like, "That's a risk I'm willing to take."
Totally. Doesn't that kind of prove what we were talking about before about how like the waitress is pretty much she's unsullied in these earlier seasons, but she has potential to be just as evil as the gang, which what she did to Charlie is extremely evil.
Yeah, yeah.
Extremely evil. Maybe the most evil thing in this whole episode. Actually, no, it is the most evil thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that teaching children to stab other children with safety pins is evil, but it's a quick thing. I mean, if Charlie was actually an alcoholic and it wasn't a cartoon like sitcom,
Right.
then yes, this would be like a life-crushing possible like scenario.
Yeah.
So
Charlie doesn't take it well, obviously.
Yeah, so she's part of the gang basically. Also, I just want to quickly mention that her apartment rules because also she has like some cool furniture, like that chair is pretty awesome. The one with the ottoman that Charlie puts his feet on.
And
But-
the low chairs, the tiny low chairs that he's sitting in at the end, or the
Right.
last scene in the.
But her bedspread is like super crazy old, like old lady style. It like doesn't make sense to me. Like
It's from
somehow-
Urban Outfitters, motherfucker.
You know it? You know
Yep.
that bedspread?
Yeah, of course I do. I worked in
Oh.
housewares, man.
I didn't know. That's weird. Okay. Anyway, cool. Which makes sense again. Philly,
Yeah,
Urban
right.
Outfitters, like
know.
someone was related. We got to find that link.
As soon as Charlie like tried to sit on it, I was like, oh yeah, I folded that thing. I folded that motherfucker thousands of times.
So my favorite part of her apartment, in addition to all the other cool stuff, was her computer.
Oh yeah,
Which-
yeah. She doesn't have the internet, or she doesn't have internet online. She doesn't have
She d-
online.
I don't have the online.
No,
yeah.
I actually looked it up. I don't have online.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't
It's
have
all
online.
good, but regardless, it's such a banger.
Yeah. So she has like an Apple IIe.
Two? Yeah.
No, well, it's not even. I don't think it's the 2E or the 2GS. I think it's like the little
Yeah.
tiny box. It's like the little guy.
It was in my dad's like classroom in
Right.
the 80s at some point.
Yeah.
I think I played. No, I don't even know if I played games on that computer.
Yeah, I feel like it might have. I don't know. Could it have predated Oregon Trail? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I think
either
it did. I think it did.
either way,
Yeah.
it's pretty comical.
Amazing.
The type of computer she has, which is a plant. Because again, are they that? I don't want to discredit them, but like, are they that good that how many episodes from now?
No, I think that's just coincidental. I would love it if there was a long con going on, but
Well, not even a con, but just like
I don't.
is her character so developed that like that her character is so fleshed out and so true to itself that they know her and they can be like, oh no, as far as technology goes, she's not. She's old school. She doesn't have a cell phone. She doesn't have the internet. She doesn't even know how to say the internet. Like,
Right.
could they have known that for 5 seasons?
Maybe. I think that's a generous read on it, but I would like to believe that you're right. Hey guys, just a quick note to say thank you so much for listening to our podcast. And if you like us, you should subscribe.
And if you feel so inclined and think we are 5-star men, give us a good rating, maybe leave a review so that other people can find it. And if you'd like to keep up to date with us on Twitter, you can find us at Always Stockholm. Okay, anyway, moving on. Now I think let's get back to like the games, because at this point, Frank convinces them through a series of escalations to bet on the game. Because now he's coach because he beat Dennis at the game, at the free throws. And we're getting to the day of, because the Ducks and the Wildcats are fighting. They're playing each other. You can tell that I played sports. So Frank says, yeah, you want to bet? And then somebody's like, yeah, I bet you $100. And then Dennis is like, well, hold on, our team kind of sucks. Like, don't be too confident. And it escalates. So they've got $500 riding on the game now.
Oh shit! I lost you for like a minute, but if you're okay, keep going.
Oh yeah, I'm just babbling.
Cool,
So
cool.
So
I was gonna say one thing, and I don't know if you already covered it because I was getting ready to say it, and then you froze. But I thought it was weird how easily Dennis was convinced, let alone bet, but then like upping the bet. Because at first he protested once, like, come on, our kids are terrible, and then he just like got in as soon as Frank started jumping in. It was like he didn't put up any more fight.
Right. But I think that is sort of the idea. And at the end of this little exchange, I think Frank nails it, because they get heated. And it's not about what team has the odds of winning, which is what Dennis reacted to at the beginning of the $100 bet. But then when it went to $200, and then when it went to $500, at that point he was just pissed. And he wanted to like beat the odds and say like, fuck it, I'm going to overcome them. And I don't know if you feel this way about like any sort of like addiction or flaws or, faults, but a lot of times the emotion trumps logic in these scenarios.
Of course.
And that's like why gambling addiction is real, because people think they can beat the odds and they think they're an exception. And I think that's where they almost don't care about the odds. And it's just like a battle at that point.
It's like Swedes versus coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. You just double down on the bad idea and you're like, fuck it. We'll just do it.
No, masks don't work. No.
And then, and I think this is kind of wrapped up and summed up where at the end of this exchange, I think Frank realizes that they're so into it and they're kind of addicted to gambling now in the moment. He's like, ooh, baby, gambling. He like has a line where he just
that's a beautiful
says,
line, yeah.
He says like something, it's like, now we're talking, and then a pause, and then says
Gambling.
like he's supporting the idea of gambling. Anyway, another good line I think when they go back to their teams to like pump them up for the match is when Mac asks his team if they're drinking their Red Bull, and the one kid says he feels sick, and then Mac says,
That's the vitamins ripping out the inside of your stomach. That's a good thing. Trust me.
Beautiful.
So he's hardening his players, getting them ready.
He's also his attire is quite something. Him and D are in stark contrast.
Right. So I mentioned earlier the pantsuit, but at this point, and earlier points when they sort of established this dynamic, Mac had entered with combat boots, like maybe Dickies shorts kind of thing.
I think they're Dickies pants cut off.
Right, Dickies slack shorts, and then is it a leather jacket over that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and I think at one point, G says, are you going to take advice from someone who's never played an organized sport in their life? And it really does seem like Mac is embodying the lack of experience he has.
He's got street smarts, dude. That's the difference between him and D.
Yeah.
There ain't no rules out there on the streets.
And the streets are kind of like, the rec center basketball court. Same thing.
Right.
Yeah, so they got the bet. They're prepping their team. Dennis is convincing them that if they step on their opponent's foot in the right way, they could break in 3 spots. Whereas that's when Mac, it cuts to Mac telling them about the wristband, and if you put a safety pin in it, you could jab them with it. Basically being shitty people. So at this point, Dennis is freaking out because he just made the bet. Stakes are high, And then he looks over his team, and Chris is missing. So meanwhile, Chris is their star player. And, Frank seems uninterested, even though he is on the side of that bet. He's like, oh, well, don't know where he is. It's fine. We don't need him. We'll be fine.
Zero concern for a very concerning turn of events.
Right. So Dennis is like, hold on, this is weird. Let me go check. And Frank's like, no, why? Well, the game's about to start. We'll just see. And Dennis is like, what is? He's like a block away. It's fine. So Dennis goes to check in on Chris. And so we sort of see this thing unfold, which I guess has been prepped earlier because Frank pulled Chris aside and kind of was being shady. But Dennis sees Chris with a new bike, and we've kind of realized that Frank bought Chris a new bike in order to not play the game, such that he would throw it.
I'm not supposed to play.
What do you mean you're not supposed to play?
You know what? I'll have to talk to you, shithead.
And, now Dennis is back, upset with Frank that he's doing this, but the game is about to start, so there's not much time. Meanwhile, the waitress shows up, and she's like, oh, Dennis, I broke up with Charlie. Everything's good. And he's like, okay, go away. Why are you here? I don't care.
Quick note, Frank is doing the same thing that Dennis did in the episode before, where he changed the bet a little bit. Frank bet against his own team. Dennis bet against Mac.
Right. Yeah, I guess in this scenario, Frank is putting his thumb on the scale. But in the other episode, where Dennis convinces Mac to join the fighting ring because the opponent seems so small, Dennis just knew Mac was going to get his ass beaten.
Right.
So
there are similarities.
Right, totally, 100%. I agree fully.
Yeah.
I was just pointing out the small difference in the overall very large similarity.
Right.
So so they set the premise, and I think just the small funny thing here is where Dennis is like, whatever, waitress, go away. No one wants to deal with you. Go back into the bleachers. It's fine. And she's like, no way I'm going up there. It's so smoky. And then it cuts to the Vietnamese crew, and they're just like inside smoking with like all the money in their hands, like betting. So that's sort of when it really comes full circle, and we realize Frank, threw the game because he must have put a much larger bet on the other team with the Vietnamese. Right. And this is where we hit our sweet montage, because Charlie comes in as the ref, drunk, and we realize that when he was with the waitress earlier and left, because he was jealous that Dennis was getting the attention, he must have volunteered to be the referee, trying to impress the waitress. But now that he got dumped as a sponsor, or as a sponsoree, he's just drunk and he's ready to cause havoc. And this montage of Charlie being the ref and just joking around and messing around with little kids is fucking awesome. I just like him blocking their shots, and it's kind of awesome.
The sequence that I was talking about is when Charlie, on one end, steals the ball and does a layup for one team, and then chases the ball down the other side and does an amazing block shot on the other end, which is like 100% just what happened. Like, that wasn't planned by any means. Like, that's just what happened. I'm sure Charlie knew he was going to be an insane man in there, but it's like...
Well, I think that, they probably planned. They were like, you could just like steal the ball at some point and take a shot or kick it against the wall or do a big half-court throw or block someone. But I'm sure they shot a bunch of that. And actually, that would probably be awesome to watch the B-roll from that. But also, I don't know if you noticed, but the sound of him blocking the shot sounds so good. And so good. I actually don't think it's sound design. I think it's actually from...
Yeah, he whacks the shit out of it. And then he also has another block shot right after that. That's so good.
Right.
But like blocking the shots of people that are like half your size is so fun.
Right. It like kind of writes itself in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, great. So good. And that kind of brings us to the end. I don't know. I guess at some point, Dennis kind of says, you fixed the game. And then Frank's like, oh, quiet. Don't say that word, because he doesn't want to know what the Vietnamese would do if, they found out he was cheating. And and then the tag at the end of the show as the credits roll is them picking up trash on the side of the road, because obviously they can't be trusted with community service in other ways.
Just like the cacophony of the like Harlem Globetrotters music, everything going insane on the basketball court, the reactions from the waitress, Charlie screaming at her like, "You see what you've done?"
Right.
Like that whole thing, that to me was when I was like watching it the second time, and I was like, yeah, this episode just kicks balls. Like it's so crazy and like chaotic, and I feel like that's like what Always Sunny is for me. It's just like this complete just noise.
Right. And I was just thinking that a lot of the people again who like might not like this show, that's the kind of chaos that they're not into, and that's the kind of
it's-
chaos that I love.
It's just like the beautiful payoff for the whole episode. Just culminates in just like like pure chaos for
Yeah.
a good couple minutes.
And there's beauty in that chaos.
Exactly. And it's just like, these are all terrible people. The waitress is terrible. Everyone is guilty. Frank fixed the bet.
Right. Both teams are being super shady.
Right.
Charlie is being sketchy with the waitress, even though she's being super sketchy with him, maybe worse. But like, he had no interest of being a sponsoree, and
He was
curing.
probably drinking the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like everyone is guilty, except I guess Dee in this scenario, she has some like pride and avarice or whatever, but like she's the voice of reason as she
Right.
typically is. Not always, but typically is.
Right.
She's been pretty reasonable this episode.
Yeah.
And that's the point where I think once they make the bet, they kind of like, I think they square off Mac and Dennis, and then they pan out, like they move back or pan out slowly, and then it shows Frank and Dee next to each other, and it's just
right.
a crazy moment to see Dee, who's a fairly tall, I don't know how tall, but tall woman, and Danny DeVito is just like this insanely short man.
Right.
He's so short, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen pictures of his family, like his parents? I mean, we've seen his daughter because she's on the show.
I mean, his wife is also very short, Rhea Perlman. I guess
Oh
they're
my
not
God.
married anymore. Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, from Cheers.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she's probably in a million other things, but that's what I know
Right.
her from.
They're like the same size.
Damn. Okay, what about his parents? Let's go find his parents sometime.
Couldn't tell you about that, but I mean, my sister's pretty short. My sister's the same height as Danny DeVito.
Like 3'9".
4'10".
Have I ever met your sister?
Yes. Several times.
I don't remember that. That seems like noticeably short, memorably short.
Yeah, that's how tall she is.
All right, well, that's all I got for this episode.
That was a great recap, Will. I loved it.
How do you like the new format?
I love it. I think it's great. I think maybe what we should do is is divide it in half.
Oh, okay, I see. I was thinking that like I would do this episode and you would do the next episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Either way. Because like I feel like
You getting a little jelly? You getting a little
Well,
jelly? All
I
my
felt like
airtime?
no. I love that.
You feeling like Michael Keaton in Batman Returns?
He also said that he was fine with the screen time, so maybe you should do your research.
Yeah, but it sounds like you aren't.
No, God damn it! Didn't let me finish what I was saying.
Okay,
I
proceed.
think it's great. I feel like when I would interject, I would always be stepping on your toes, or I'd always have to be waiting for you to finish your sentence, and I felt a little bit of guilt.
Oh no, but that's your job as my son.
I know, but I felt like I had to be like,
You're the episode baby. You're supposed to jump in. Like
ba 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 ba.
your goal is to interject and to stop and to we're trying to
Cool.
play the classic
Then-
comedy
then-
duo of straight man, other
Then great.
person.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. We'll see how the metrics are when this publishes.
Yeah. So feedback, just flood the inbox. We'll try and get to all your questions, and
Let it, baby. Yeah. So does that do it for this episode?
I think so.
Thanks for joining us here on It's Always Stockholm in Los Angeles. I would have named the podcast Birds of War, but that's okay. My name is Nate Harold, and I'm here with my podcast dad, Will Noon.
Hello.
We'll see you next time.